A very good morning to all of you here in Brussels, and an equally good morning to everybody who is following us on web stream in other places in Europe and beyond, all around the world. We are very happy to share this day with you today. We are aware that we are competing against very busy timescales these days, but we are pretty convinced that when you walk out of this room in the afternoon, you will feel that it was a time well spent to listen and talk with us today. We will be having presentations explaining what the status of gender equality is in Europe as we know today. We will have very exciting panel discussions, and we will also do our best to engage you in the discussion as much as possible, either from here in the audience or through Twitter. We will go back into that a little bit more during the day. If you are not comfortable in listening in English or talking in English, you will also have the opportunity to use our wonderful interpretation services. So on that screen over there, you can find the channels. So we will have also the event interpreted in French and German. And this applies also to our web stream viewers. So you can also check or choose your language, what is best for you. My name is Meera Banerjee. I'm the head of communications at EIGE, and I am really excited to be and spend this day here with you today. And I know that so is Vincent.
Yes. A warm welcome from my side as well. It's very exciting to see all of you here. My name is Vincent-Immanuel Herr. I work with HERR SPEER in Germany as an author and activist. I'm also catalyst for the He for She Germany campaign by the German National Committee of UN Women in the campaign, and so do I. We're very interested in finding out how to engage more men with the topic of gender equality and feminism. And looking around the room, I am actually positively surprised to see quite a few men in the room, which I think is a good start. At UN Women Germany, we consider more than 10% of men at these kind of events a success. I think we have already had a success today. I think that's very exciting. Still, there's room for improvement, and I think it's exciting and important to bring more men on board. And I've always viewed the index as a good possibility to show why gender equality is so important for all of us, women, men, and everybody else. Today, as you watch the conference, please feel free to use Twitter. Please feel free to comment, share thoughts, ideas, or questions. We might even address them on the panel. If you do, please use our hashtag EIGEIndex to make sure that all the comments go to the right direction. Before we get started, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude and a big thank you to our hosts. Already for the third time, we're able to present the index here at the home of the Council of the European Union, this wonderful room, this great location. And so I think it is very fitting to give the first few words to our host, or I guess hostess in this case, represented by Inga Rosinska, who is the Director for Information and Outreach with the General Secretariat of the Council. Inga, thank you so much for having us, and the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. I would like to extend our warm welcome to all of you here. Minister Blomqvist, Vice President of the European Parliament Papadimoulis, Director Langbakk, all of you, our guests, our colleagues. This is for me a personal pleasure and honor to welcome all of you. You could maybe guess, because I'm a woman, that this is the topic which I'm also interested personally, not also for the professional reasons. Before opening this event, I would like to tell you that when preparing to welcome you, I found an interesting news in the media about a Nobel Prize for economics. We have 2 men, but 1 woman, Esther Duflo, receiving the prize. And I think this is extremely interesting, what were her almost first words, because she said, I hope that it will inspire many, many other women to continue working, and many other men to give them respect that they deserve, like every simple human being. And she has just said that immediately why she's talking about it. She said that we are at a time when we are starting to realize, only starting in the profession, her profession, that the way we conduct each other privately and publicly is not conducive all the time to a very good environment for women. And I checked, this is 116 years after Maria Curie-Skłodowska received the Nobel Prize as the first woman receiving the Nobel Prize. So I think it's also telling that still a Nobel Prize winner is thinking that it's worth to mention this. What I wanted to say today, and this is also my personal reflection, that we have different levels of tackling the problem of gender equality. There is a legal framework, there is something that we are conscient, how we are acting, what we are thinking, and there is this unconscious bias, which is also very important, and very often we don't think about it. Because we are here in the premises of the Council, I would like to say a few words about efforts of the European Union, the Member States, but also the European Parliament, the Commission, of course, the EU institutions, and probably, as you know, that quite recently, this year, we had a new legislation which is regulating, among others, parental leave and paternity leave. And it's important that it cannot be exchanged. So if there is a leave for men, women cannot take it over. Then we will be waiting till 2020 for the implementation of this law. So let's see how it will be working in practice. We had also recently Council conclusions on closing the gender pay gap and enhancing the skills of women and men in the EU labour market. This is important to have these conclusions because the legal framework is very important, how people act, how people think, but this is not, of course, enough. Before finishing, I would like to say that in the Secretariat of the Council, we pay attention also to the gender balance, gender equality. This is something which is deliberately on the agenda also when recruiting. And as an example, in 2008, we had 15% at the higher management level of women, and this year in January, it was 33%. It's not a half. It's far from being perfect or close to the representation of women in the society, but there is a progress in this field. So let me thank EIGE for coming here and working with us on spreading the message. I think that your analysis will be contributing not only to what we know, but also how to fight against this unconscious bias, which is very important that we are aware of it, that it exists. So just I thought that at the end I will share with you my preferred example about this bias. This is probably many of them, I don't know who've heard about this experiment about orchestra. Some, but not so many. The thing is that some years ago, and it was not so far ago, I think 2013, the Philharmonic Orchestra in New York found that they have much bigger number of men playing in the orchestra than women. But the general feeling was that simply men are better. And that people in the panels, they like more their style, the men, than of female colleagues. And then they applied blind hearings. So you cannot see who is playing. And suddenly, from the number of new hires that women were at the level of 10%, suddenly this number came to 45%. What was also for me very telling in this experiment was that when we didn't have a blind hearing, the women also had a tendency to choose more often men. So this is, I think, also something very, very telling about our society. With this example, I will just leave you to listen to the conference, to learn about the report, and I think that it will be very inspiring and useful meeting for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Inga. And indeed, the Council is a very important partner for us in working for gender equality at the EU level. So we are all in this together, and it's really great to have this partnership also with the Council. Now, we will start with our opening speeches of the day. So we would want to set the stage for an overview of where we are and how we see gender equality in the European Union today from three key players in gender equality. Not the only players, but three key players. And the first one on stage will be our director, Virginija Langbakk. And I must say that if there is one person that should climb on the stage right now, it would be Virginija. She's been leading EIGE since the very start for over 10 years now and taken the institute from the very scratch to where we are now. And I worked together with Virginija for 4 years, and I can assure you that there is no compromise to dedication, passion, or energy to gender equality from her side. Virginija, for the fourth time, to open the Gender Equality Index Conference.
Friends, in a few hours, in 1 hour, you will know if the European Union is moving forward the same slow as it was 2 years ago, or did we make a progress? But now, if I ask you, just think, tell me, what do you see in our Gender Equality Index? Do you see the faces behind it, the statistics? Do you see the passion, emotions? Do you see that? Or do you see the gaps which show how big the variety is? When I look at the index, and I can tell you, every time we have the first version, I'm itching in my body to see what is new. What is it that we got? How much of new statistics we got to see the differences? And when I read it, I see my neighbor who has been driving a bus in Vilnius for all her life. Now she's retired. She wasn't given any chances to study. She's barely making her life. When I read education, I see a daughter of my friend in Sweden who wanted to study being an electrician. She wanted to be there that also she can influence. And what happened? When she started working in a company, she quit in 6 months because they said, there's nothing for a girl. So we have so many varieties besides statistics to show in the index. We see what's happening with the migrant women, men. We know that half of the migrant women are unemployed, but we don't know more. We can see Roma, other ethnicities, but we don't have the data. We see that, for example, we would like to see how the same-sex couples are sharing the household work, unpaid work. What are the conditions to get, let's say, adopted children, and what is against? We don't have the data. So in my view, I don't know how you see it, but we are the big variety. European Union has so many different aspects, which is gender and something, age, education, single parent, old parent or grandparent. It's unacceptable that it is in 10 years now time almost. We launched the first index in 2013, but I also have to remind you that the data usually is 2 years old because then it is official statistics and we cannot play with unreliable statistics, which means that in our fourth edition during all the year, we have many indicators which are missing the data, which means that if we think about this, we cannot put it in action. We cannot change the realities or challenges of the people because we don't know how it affects it. And it's also unacceptable if you think about violence against women. We are trying to see how to uproot this phenomena. It's completely gendered. And then we know what's happening with the ratification of the Istanbul Convention. What's happening with all the measurement? Now, in the index, I will not reveal, but you will see because it's part of the index. It's for 10 years. We do not have more data on prevalence to be updated, which means that our index, the violence domain, is still using the same data. We do not have data on which could be covering all the member states. We want to report rape. We want to analyze the femicide, this intentional killing of a woman because she's a woman. We want to see and put the data on trafficking in human beings because trafficking is mostly women and girls. The data is not comparable, which shows that we will not be able to populate, as the jargon says, the index because we don't have the statistics to show it. So that means that despite the fact that we are putting very much efforts, we are trying to show the variety so that decision makers, both parliaments but also the governments, could see to put the right money for the right gap and the right actions that things start moving. And unfortunately, it is not there. So what is it now we have extra? What is it new that we have in our index? First of all, of course, as you know, the index is to support the European Union in making the priorities gender sensitive, in making the priorities, the policies and new challenges fit to the gaps, to the needs of all the big variety of the potential of the European Union. So the novelty of this index is that we made an analysis, we made a very good piece of work on work-life balance. You know how many discussions it was during the period, how much we discussed what is it really to indicate the differences. And there we need to think about those different perspectives, variety, lone parent, single, old, educated, and all that, because that connects. So besides the analysis of, you will hear more in detail, of the traditional, the care role, long-term care, leave and all this, we also try to find the data, try to find the analysis to analyze some different perspectives, which nobody yet analyzed. And this is, for example, on economic and environmental structures and infrastructure, commuting, transport, patterns. And what do we see? We see, and that it's nothing new for you, women are much more likely to act in an environmentally friendly ways. They do many more things, small maybe things, but like recycling. The effect on the climate is better, but on the women themselves, we know that they add extra on the work they do. And in the index last year, 2 years ago, what was it? The unpaid burden for women has increased. You will see how is it now, and I will not tell, but that shows that isn't that a limping kind of policy? We are now putting, which is very good, progressive, now the European Union is putting the target, 25%, both budget target, but also, to mainstream the environment in all policy areas, knowing that women have and try to put efforts to change and to add small efforts to add to the environment. What do we have? Who will take the decisions on those 25%? How gender will be integrated? We know that today it is about 80% of men who are taking decisions, who are ministers, in all of those technical areas, which shows that we will miss the diversity target, the targeted measures, if we don't put it. So, let's say tracking the expenditure, as we say, should also be expenditure from the gender equality perspective. And finally, since we are adjusting our index, now you might have heard that from now on, from this year, the next year will be, we are closing the 2 years sequence, and we will start developing the index every year. Some people would say, okay, but the index doesn't change so much. You see how many, like 1-2 points per 2 years is changing. The thing what we are adding is that we want to see how the challenges, the future challenges of the development, the context, is affecting not just women and men and another gender, but also all of those different groups. For that, we need data. So that means next will be on digitalization. And do we know how much data we have? We need to start. And also, I believe you will agree with me, knowing how much we can save the budget if we target it properly, and how much we can use it for the long-term development if measures like now we develop for work-life balance, if the indicators are an essential part of the future European strategy on gender equality. If they are ways to monitor how the work-life balance can increase economic growth, can big the potential for women, not only men, to work and get employed, full-time work. So it has to be also a more gender-sensitive monitoring of the European semester. Gender Equality Index is about us. It is about the variety of us. It is about what we can get out of the common and what we can contribute to the common policies. It really is important that each one of us is a part of it, and then we can shape the Europe, because Europe is our Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Virginija. Now you hear that we are improving, we are developing, we are making the index more and more relevant, and we still have many challenges ahead of us, but this is what makes the whole work interesting. But it's all about policy making. It's all about connecting Gender Equality Index to real use to make a change in the gender equality situation in Europe. And we are very happy to have the Vice President from the European Parliament with us today, Mr. Dimitrios Papadimoulis, who is in charge of gender equality and diversity in the European Parliament. And European Parliament is really one of our biggest and most faithful supporters in pushing the gender equality agenda forward. Mr. Papadimoulis, please.
Dear Minister, dear Mrs. Langbakk, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure for me to be here with you because I am, for more than 5 years, the Vice President of the European Parliament who has in his portfolio the equality and diversity as a goal, and we have the ambitious goal to become, in the coming years, the European Parliament, the leading institution in implementing equality in all possible fields. In the last 5 years, we had a very good cooperation with EIGE, and I have once again to congratulate Mrs. Langbakk for her excellent job. She was telling me that probably it will be the last presence of the index. I hope that it will not be happen. I think that it's important not only to put goals on papers, but to implement, to achieve real improvements, real progress in our life. And although we are making progress, we are still far away from achieving the goal of equality. In the European Parliament, we started working on that in 2003, 16 years ago. We had created a high-level group on equality and diversity, and I have the honor to chair that high-level group for the last 5 years. In 2 weeks ago, we made the meeting of the Bureau of the European Parliament, evaluating our progress in the last 5 years and putting goals for the new legislative period until 2024. For the past, we prepared a report putting goals from 2014 until 2019. First of all, in improving the presence of women in the administration. And we put quantitative goals because I'm an engineer and I believe strongly in also quantitative goals in politics. I have to say that we achieved the percentage that we put as a goal in the head of units, women presence of 40%. We achieved also the goal on the level of directors, 35%, but we failed in the level of the general director, in which we had put a goal for 30%, and the percentage now is lower than 20%. That means that there is a need to work hardly as we're going higher in the level of the administration, because it's important to break the glass ceiling. My aspiration for the next legislative period is to put more ambitious goals. I presented in the Bureau of the European Parliament 2 weeks ago the goals of 50% in the heads of unit, 50% in the level of directors, and 40%, more than double the existing one, in the level of the Director-General. But we are not working only on that. We try at the same time in the political level to increase the role of women in politics. And on that field, we are in a better condition comparing ourselves with the Council and with the national parliaments. Now, we have in the new elected European Parliament 40% of women. We have gender-balanced political bodies. Almost 50% of the committees of the European Parliament have women as chair. In the Bureau of the European Parliament, we have 60% of women. It's strange that the chair of the high-level group on equality is a man with a white mustache, but I think that it's good that for the first time the Bureau of the European Parliament has 60% of women in its synthesis. And also 30% of the chairs of the political group are women. Better than in the past, but not enough. We are working also in other fields related on diversity, trying to improve the role of the LGBTI plus community, or for non-discrimination regarding race or ethnicity. And I'm personally very glad that in the last 5 years, all my reports on equality and diversity were accepted from the Bureau of the European Parliament unanimously, although we are representing different political families with a lot of differences in many fields. I think that it is important to strengthen also our cooperation with the other institutions. I am not satisfied enough from our cooperation with the Commission and with the Council. I think that we could do more. For example, in the last legislative period, we prepared and accepted a gender-neutral language with no so more he, but also her in describing roles. And I would like also from the Council to go towards that direction. Closing my speech, I would like to say that While the world has indeed achieved progress towards gender equality, women and girls continue to suffer discrimination, violence in every part of the world. Gender equality is not only a fundamental human right, but a necessary foundation for a peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and we very much like the words ambitious goals. I think this is what we all want to see and want to aim towards. Thank you very much. Now our third opening address comes from Monika Ladmanova, who is the advisor to the Commissioner Věra Jourová during these times of change that are happening here in Brussels. Unfortunately, there was a last-minute change in her agenda, and she didn't manage to be with us today. But Monika, working as her right hand, or both hands sometimes, will be very happy to pass on the message from the Commissioner. Monika.
Thank you. Yes, both hands, yes, indeed. So, Honorable Vice Chair, Mr. Minister, it's a pleasure to be here today and to launch the 2019 Gender Equality Index. For us, it is a tool which acts as a thermometer which measures the temperature of gender equality in the European Union. Commissioner Jourová indeed regrets that she can't be here today, and she asked me to speak on her behalf. Firstly, allow me to convey my sincere thank you to our colleagues from European Institute for Gender Equality for their effort and dedication to prepare the Gender Equality Index. It is an important work because its multi-dimensional approach helps us to track the development in gender equality in past 2 and more years in many wide range of areas. It also comes in a very important moment because it helps us now to reflect on the future of the EU gender equality policy because, as all of you know, we are getting to the end of the mandate of the first ever commissioner designated for gender equality. In the past 5 years, we pushed strongly to put forward actions to promote and to advance gender equality in Europe and elsewhere. We addressed all the priority areas which we identified in our strategy. And we tried to do it in the most efficient way. We used legislation, campaigning, financing, in many cases the combination of all of these. Together, we adopted the first gender equality legislation in a decade, and it focused on increasing women's labour market participation and to offer a choice and flexibility towards work-life balance of working mothers and fathers in Europe. We also proposed the accession of the EU to the Council of Europe Convention to eradicate the gender-based violence. And we adopted a comprehensive plan to address the gender pay gap in Europe. Commissioner Jourová made it her personal mission to combat and to eradicate the violence against women. Virginija already mentioned it. We are missing the data. I still remember the shock when we published in 2014 the first EU-wide data on violence against women in Europe. It was only in 2014. And we learned that 1 in 3 women in Europe has experienced sexual or physical violence, and every second woman has experienced sexual harassment. We decided to dedicate the 2017 as a year of a focused action to combat violence against women. And we engaged in numerous actions, be it educate, raise awareness, facilitate national or cross-border collaboration, or to have a greater impact on the ground through funding NGOs or national authorities-led grassroots projects. We also launched numerous actions to make sure that women have a better access to resources, including their improved participation at the leadership positions. We push strongly to mainstream gender equality in many policy areas. I can mention digital market, transport, trade, agriculture, education, migration, and many others. We also reinforce gender dimension in the European international policy. I can mention the Spotlight Initiative with the United Nations. So this is just an example of what we did. We are closely engaged in the European semester process, meaning to coordinate the economic policies, to ensure that gender equality is included. So we put gender equality issues on the table of economic ministers, because it is also an economic aspect, isn't it? So each year we targeted country-specific recommendations for countries like Estonia to address the high-level gender pay gap, to countries like Czech Republic to address the need of the affordable childcare, or countries like Germany to address the tax incentives for the double-earning families. All together, with other commissioners, with our allies in the European Parliament, with various presidencies, but supplied with the important contribution from the European Institute for Gender Equality and with the tremendous help of the civil society, we managed to keep gender equality in the heart of the political debate. So, where are we now in 2019? We will learn shortly. I'm not going to reveal the new data, but I can just say one thing. There is no time for complacency. While there is a progress, the progress is very slow, and it will require strong, continuous political commitment by the new Commission. There are new challenges. There is artificial intelligence, climate change, cyber violence, gig economy, and it will require the new approach, new thinking, new policies. I am glad that the new Commission's President-elect, Madame von der Leyen, had put gender equality into her focus, and she made it one of her priorities. And she assured that the European Commission will continue and strengthen its effort in this field, be it through specific actions or through gender mainstreaming. Some of the actions were already announced. The new gender equality strategy is under making, such as the new legislation to address the gender pay gap. And I'm particularly glad that Madam President-elect decided to designate the new self-standing portfolio of equality to a person who is known for her dedication, for her commitment and determination and passion, Madam Helena Dalli. The past 5 years were challenging when it comes to the gender equality across the globe. In many countries, women lost their rights, which they were fighting for decades. In Europe, we experienced the reopening of the long-term settled issues in an effort to weaken the progress of women's equality. It is the role of the European Union to safeguard these rights and to ensure that women and men enjoy these rights. To navigate us in this important work, we have tools such as Gender Equality Index. I would conclude in promising to always stick to the basic principle. It is the line which, for the 5 years, I got in every briefing for Commissioner Jourová when it comes to the gender equality-related meeting or event. Gender equality is one of the fundamental values of European Union, and it enters into all spheres of life. I can only add, there is no democracy